Okay, everybody. Welcome to our Your DNA Guide Facebook Live event. I'm here with Ran Snir of MyHeritage, and I hope that this is something you guys have been looking forward to. We had to postpone it due to some family. Let me just close that up. Some family obligations that I had. So I'm so grateful that Ran was so flexible and was able to join us here, even though he's technically on holiday even this week, guys, and he's with us. So welcome, Ran. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Diane. It's great to be here.
So I wanted to start out. I have been trying to find a way to introduce the people that I know to people that follow me here on Facebook or whatever. And of course, we always want to talk DNA. But before we even get to that, I really just want them to learn a little bit more about you, because you've become a good friend of mine, and I want them to see why you're such a great guy. So if you want to start, just introduce yourself a little bit, tell us your background, and especially how you ended up at MyHeritage.
So, as you mentioned, my name is Ran Snir. I live in Israel, was born in Israel and raised in Israel, aside of a couple of years when I lived abroad. For the past 15 years or so, I've worked in the tech industry in Israel, in different companies, doing different things. Lived in New York for 2 years, where I worked for one of the companies in my portfolio. And about 5 years ago, a good friend of mine gave me a call and told me that at MyHeritage, they're currently looking for a product manager position for a new product that they're launching. And I knew all about MyHeritage even before I joined, and I really loved what they were doing. And I've been personally been a customer and a user for many years. And one thing led to another, and I joined about almost 5 years ago, and mostly I've been doing I'm in charge of the DNA product pretty much since I started. I'm married to Yulia, my beautiful wife. I have 2 kids, 2 beautiful daughters, 7 and 4, and I think that pretty much covers it, like in 30 seconds.
That was perfect. Good. So we want to know, what is it like working in the MyHeritage company? Like, you've had other work experience, like what is special or different, or what do you like about MyHeritage as a company?
So I think that actually continues my previous answer. So the first company I worked for in Israel was doing educational technology, and they were trying to transform the way students, mostly in elementary schools, study these days. If you try to think of different, jobs or occupations that we know in the world, most of them they changed a lot in the past century or so. Aside for education, so as a kid, I used to go to school about 30 years ago, and I used to take my books and my pencil and my pen. We got to school, and the teacher used to write on a board, and not a lot has changed since then. And what that company was trying to do is to digitize that process. And if you think about it today, in the world that we live in, where kids have smartphones from very early age, and everyone's familiar with Google and YouTube, and everything is so digital, it's pretty difficult to take someone at that age and then take him 50 years back in time and put him in a classroom and just keep the same process. And that company was trying to change that and have students learn using laptops and the animated content that we created. And I really loved that thing that we did, because it really changed and had a lot of impact on our users at the time, which were in between, students at the age of 6 to 10 or 11. And it was really successful. And I really felt passion, getting up in the morning, doing what I'm doing, and how it contributes, and the impact that it has. And I think MyHeritage is very similar in that way. So there are many companies that are doing, when you're working in tech. My previous company, we used to work on video conferencing solutions, such as the one we're doing here. But I think that what I really like about MyHeritage and what I'm doing specifically is that it has such a huge impact on people's lives. I'm sure the audience that's following us is familiar with, what genealogy holds, and, things that you can learn. And I think the word we say the most in the offices is emotion, right? So there's so much emotion involved in this word. So some people take it more into the research, they like the research part of doing genealogy. Some people are taking it more personally and more to the emotional part. But anywhere you take it, it has such an impact on people's lives. And, the Facebook groups are filled with amazing stories of people discovering more about their past and about their ancestors, and more about themselves, because, it's kind of a circle, right? You learn about your ancestors, meaning you learn more about you. And I think that's what I like the most about this company. Obviously, the people are amazing, and, the thing we get to work on, and MyHeritage specifically, is a super professional environment to work in, and we're doing things with very good methodologies and best practices in the industry, talking now professionally wise. But really, at the end of the day, it's the product that we're giving out to users, how they use it, and what it gives them. And that's that's the drive. That's the thing that gets us going. So mostly that.
That's great. So one of the things that you just said that made me think of one of my favorite life themes is how, you start out and you, especially with your career, and you do whatever you can get at first, right? You're like, you're going to give me a job and pay me to do it. I'm in, right? And then even in those first early experiences, you're gaining and you're picking up different skills or different ideas, and I love how even that software company that you were working for, I can see a lot of the similar things that you probably felt and learned there. I can see you applying those things that you're learning now in MyHeritage, that idea that the current user today has different needs than the genealogist 20 years ago. And I really love that about MyHeritage. I feel like you're super dialed into what people today can have, and let's deliver it to them in a way that makes sense and helps them to capitalize on all of the wonderful resources that we have. So I feel like you've pulled that from your previous life and you're inserting it into here. I do love that about the products that you guys are offering. So that's very cool. Okay, so speaking of your product, especially your DNA product, will you just walk us through how do new features that you want to launch kind of creep their way into your purview? How do you find them? And then how does it go from this little idea to something that you're actually putting out there for us as users?
Sure. So maybe I'll say a couple of words about what a product manager is. I'm not sure everyone's familiar with that. So a product manager, and there are various definitions. If you'll Google now product manager and try to look at the different definitions of what the responsibilities are, or what I'm supposed to do every morning when I wake up and go to the office or work remotely, as we mostly do these days.
Yeah.
So I this definition that I like the most is to try to think of what should I do, and that can be a new feature, that can be changing something that already exists, or trying something completely new, or change offerings and things like that. What can I do to bring more value to my users? And these are a few words, but they hold within them so many things, because first you need to understand who are your users. Second, you need to understand what's valuable to them, because I'm using the product, right? I've tested myself, I've tested many family members, and I'm doing genealogy research and even more genetic genealogy research. And I know how I'm using the product, right? And I know what the tools that I need and what is missing and what I want to add. But that doesn't necessarily, and that's the thing I love the most about product management, is that you know for sure what people are going to like. You build it, you launch it, and no one's using it. Like you build a great feature that you really, really like, but apparently you missed a huge portion of your users. So first, understanding users. So assuming most of the people listening to us know about DNA testing, there are some users who test solely to get their ethnicity estimates and learn more about that. And they're not super interested about DNA matching or cousin matching. There is a group who's a bit interested in that. There's a group who's into triangulated segments and mapping, things like that. People who are eager to get more of these, and people who are less. So we kind of, when I'm looking at the product that I build, I'm trying to break down my users into different groups and to understand their different needs and to make sure that I'm serving each one of them. So if someone's interested more about their ethnicity estimates, then I know that should go more in the path of fine-tuning the algorithms or adding more regions to the pool, which we tell you, like we did last December when we launched the genetic groups, which added like more than 2,100 regions to the product. And when I want to help those who are more interested in understanding each DNA match, which of this, like which segments contribute to our being relatives, I know that I need to invest more time in optimizing the chromosome browser, for example, or giving more indication there. So everything I do, or most of the things I do, let's be honest, I'm trying to ask myself whether that will be valuable to a group of users that want to use the product, or maybe I can bring in new audience that haven't joined yet, because this will be something that will trigger them or will answer some need that they have. So product management is really about trying to understand your customers or potential customers, and then trying to build the best product for them. And I can totally relate to what you said about my background, the history, and different companies I worked for, because the work of product management is talking with users a lot and going over, analyzing a lot of data when I'm launching a new product. For example, shared ancestral surnames. I have an idea that people will look at their DNA matches and it'll be great because the list is so long. I'll give them a quick option to filter the list and see people with whom they have a shared surname. So how many people actually do that? How many people filter and then go look at the DNA matches? Is the information we show them is useful? Are we showing it in the right way? Should it be this way or that way? Do most people work on their DNA when they're working on a desktop, on a big screen, or are they doing it on the mobile, on the go? And then the product needs to behave and look differently. So a typical day is usually trying to understand what people like most about the product, what people are missing, and then trying to see how we can answer those needs. And then it's up to me to also describe, and we call it spec, but kind of like write the product requirement document, which kind of tells the development what's the new feature that we're working on, who is it intended for, how should it be used, how should it look like, work with the graphic designers, and then with developers and quality assurance team members to make sure that we provide the best user experience and the right functionality that's currently missing.
That's awesome. And I do feel like, I don't know, I feel like we as a community, when I say we, I mean us as genetic genealogists, like we have a lot of sway, right? I mean, you're asking us for our opinions. And is there a good way for people to give you that kind of feedback? Like for them to reach out? What's the best way if somebody has an idea or something that they would like to see? Like what's the best way for them to get that to you?
So that's a very good question. And we're using various methods. So other companies I worked for, so especially when you're doing business to business, for example, when I worked on video conferencing, for example, and I wanted to get a new customer, like an office of lawyers, hey, this will be great to interact with your clients. So I have a contact person, right? And it's great, I can reach out to him, and there's a limited number of users, hundreds or thousands. On MyHeritage, we have tens of millions of users. And unfortunately, although there are many hours of the day, I can't reach out to each one of them separately, but we are using different methods. So actively, we are conducting surveys to different customers, asking them different questions. We run focus groups, especially back when we were meeting physically, that was a bit easier. But at RootsTech, for example, we used to invite both our users and people who are currently not our users to a focus group where we sit together and ask questions. What do you like? Why are you not on MyHeritage? Would you like to join? What's missing? Things like that. There are some in-product feedback forms where users can fill those in. And sometimes when we release a new feature and we send an email notifying about that, hey, genetic groups is released, there's an option to contact us back with feedback. And many people, one of the reasons I love the genealogy world is that the ideas and the feedback that we're getting from our users are so spot on and are so they're so of high quality, so that it's great to get them, and people are writing to our customer support with ideas, and those are being forwarded to me. We have weekly meetings with them to both hear where are the areas where we need to improve in, but also hear about new ideas that are coming from customers. So these are usually, there's a
Great.
blog. People usually respond in our blog,
Oh
writing
yeah.
things that are missing.
Good.
And
Hey,
I'm in all of the Facebook groups, so I get to read what people are saying. So
that's true. Here on
yeah.
social media, always a great way to reach out. Will you move your mic up a little bit? A couple people are
Yeah.
saying they're having a hard time hearing you. Yeah,
Is
that's
this any
better.
better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay.
Um, okay, so then of all the tools and different features you've released so far in MyHeritage DNA, what would you say is your favorite? And maybe this is like choosing a favorite child, which of course no one can ever do, but what would you say is one of your, how about just one of, not the favorite, but one of your favorite features?
Yeah, that'll be easier, because really it's hard to choose. Well, I think that, so we released so many new things over the past 4 years since the day the product was launched till today. So I have few memories, like good, vivid memories of things that we released that, excited me to the roof. I think probably the chromosome browser release, the one-to-many chromosome browser, which allowed you for the first time to look at more than one DNA match. And the fact that we added a triangulation indication. So when all people are matching one another and telling you right there that here is the segment that all of you have in common. I just remember the feedback that we got, and it was so thrilling and so like pure joy for me and for the team that I'm working with. It's not a one-man show. Very important to mention. There are many people. Usually, I go on the webinars and on the Facebook Lives, but there are so many people behind the scenes working to make all this happen. And I remember those days as like pure. I was walking at Rootstack. I think we released it right towards Rootstack, and like, people were stopping me in the corridors and telling me that it's amazing and how great it is, and how long they've been waiting for something like that, and that it's so innovative in one way. But so that's
That's
one.
great.
I love
That's
all the
one.
rest. I promise.
Of
Okay. So
course. I know, no, I
okay.
know. We love all our children, but sometimes there's one that makes us a little bit happier on a certain day than
Yeah.
the others. It's fine. I think all parents can recognize that for sure. Um, okay, and then I know this is an impossible question, but I feel like people ask it all the time of me, and so I'm going to ask it of you. But what do you think is in the future for MyHeritage DNA, or just for the DNA testing world in general? Like, what do you think is coming that's going to spark that same amount of excitement that maybe you were just feeling?
So I think that well, we see people join every day, thousands of people that are either uploading DNA data file if they've tested with another company, and even more who are buying DNA, MyHeritage DNA kits, who purchase a MyHeritage DNA kit. And I think that as the databases grow, they're already enormous, but as they grow more and we have more people join this journey, I think we'll be able to see more success stories. It'll be a bit easier also because you're going to get those references. I think that, so I'm trying to think of how I would answer that if you'd asked me in 5 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that people today understand better the advantage or the plus of testing more family members, as they can be, because at the beginning people took the test usually for themselves. Sometimes they bought it for a spouse as a gift, and and they stopped there. And you struggled, right? Because you had this long list of DNA matches and you didn't have that reference point that could have separated and say, this is maternal, this is paternal, or this is related to me through this grandfather. And people today, more people understand the value of testing more family members and more cousins and mapping their DNA matches into groups. And I think that as time will go by, it'll be easier to do genetic genealogy. In addition to what I said, we're also working today on different tools that are trying to, the holy grail eventually for anyone who's doing a DNA test, who's taking a DNA test or doing genetic genealogy in particular, is to find the most recent common ancestors between myself and a DNA match and
For
understand the
sure.
exact connection, how I'm connected to Diane, let's say, right?
Yes.
And we added so many different tools throughout the years. And now we're working, I think that we're trying to take different approaches and think more outside of the box and trying to think of various methodologies and ways on how to give that answer to more DNA matches and make things more automatic. So today, a lot of the work needs to be done manually, and we're trying all the time to work on new features that will take that, will leave. So we will still get those hints, right? We can never know, and a lot of the data is based on, statistics or and data that people put in manually, and sometimes is incorrect. Like sometimes happens with the theory of family relativity, which people were giving them. That's the reason why we call them theories, because we can say for sure. I hope most of the people are familiar with the features I'm mentioning, but we want to give users and our customers a better way and a faster way to give them, first of all, to point to which DNA matches you should look at first before looking at the others, because the list is long and you want to know who to focus on first. And then also to automate and give you as much information as possible with things that happen automatically behind the scenes that won't require from you tons of hours, which we can do for you. So I think this is the direction that our world is currently headed towards.
Well, I hope so. I love that idea. I think we can do a lot more to, like you said, to automate, but mostly just to help people focus on the matches that are most important, right? So speaking of that, I did hear a rumor somewhere that there is a feature update coming soon to that end to help us take more control over how we're managing our matches. Is that
Yes.
true?
So, yeah, that bird was humming the right song. So we are working these days on a new feature, which is called, we're calling it DNA labels, which will let you kind of group together, take your DNA matches for the kits that you have and kits that you're managing for other family members, and you'll be able to label them into different groups, give them a name, and that indication will kind of like follow you around the product, throughout the product in various places, so that it will also be easier for you to filter them and to keep track of your research. That's a feature that's actually going back to one of the first questions or one of the first topics we discussed. It's been asked by many users, and we're super happy and excited about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of holiday season now, so we're having a slight delay with that. I was hoping that we'll be able to release it before the holiday season in Israel, but I believe that around October timeframe it'll go out, and I can't wait to get the feedback and hear how people are using it and the labels that they're creating. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
can't
I
wait.
am like on pins and needles over here, Ran. I like cannot wait at all for this super, super exciting development. It's going to make such a huge difference. You guys already have so many great ways to compare your matches. I love the shared matches tool and how I can see how people are related to each other. And you and I have talked about a little update to that as well, which I hope will be coming with this labeling, but I just can't wait. So like, I'm over here just like, I kind of feel like a lot of my professional projects are on hold because I want this feature to be incorporated in the things that I'm doing. And so, okay, I can't do what I need to do unless you hurry up and do what you need to do. So I
So
don't
now I
know
have
who's
another incentive to
fire.
make it to launch it faster.
Yes, of course you do. And if there's other people on your team that I could just chat with really quick, I'm sure I could light a fire under them as well. Because I'm really like, this will make, in my mind, this will make MyHeritage so much more competitive with some other tools and tips that other companies have. And I just think it will put you guys really right on top and over the top, maybe even in some ways. So I'm
Great.
excited for you. I'm excited for the product. Obviously, I'm excited for us as genetic genealogy users. This will really improve how we use MyHeritage. My last question is probably one you can't really answer, but it's something that we've all noticed, I think, all of us on MyHeritage, in this idea that perhaps your database has gathered a few more international customers than other places. I know for myself, I have matches on MyHeritage from European countries that have not tested anywhere else. Do you guys have any data on the demographics of your users that you can share with us? Like are there any numbers that you can give us about kind of the composition of the people taking MyHeritage DNA tests?
So I can't share numbers, but I can say that, and I think that one of the, and putting even DNA aside, talking MyHeritage as a product, versus other services that exist online, I think that one of the things that helped us reach to have such a good global outreach is mostly because that very early on, we've decided to translate the website to 42 different languages. And it makes things so much easier when genealogy can be tough, even in your own native language. So think of doing that in a language that is not your mother tongue. And we've translated the website to 42 different languages, which makes it easier for people in Germany and France and Portugal and Poland and other places around the world to use it. And I won't share exact numbers, but I will say that in different times of the years, our sales are, the portion of sales in Europe is larger than the one in the States. So we have lots and lots and lots of users from all across Europe and of course, Australia, New Zealand, and some parts of Asia and South America, and some countries in Africa even, where people are joining the MyHeritage DNA journey. And that's the reason why people get, and I think I said it in a previous talk, that it's really great. Every DNA reunion is amazing, especially for me. I heard so many stories in the past 5 years or so. And it's so exciting when you're getting a DNA match, someone you knew or didn't know from the country where you live in. But talking to, for example, US users who are getting matches with people from Europe who are their relatives, and they were able to figure out the connection. These are the best stories. Like, I love those the most.
Yeah.
And people, go visit one another in different countries. And so on MyHeritage, that happens quite often because of that global outreach. So
I know there's nothing better than a success story, and I agree. It's just, and I just love that tie between that crosses continents, that crosses cultures. Like, I love how biology does that for us, right? When so many other ways we don't feel like we're compatible with people on other side of the world, like your DNA says, no, you have a common origin. I just love that principle so much. We actually have a question from Danielle. She says she can't seem to find her theories of family relativity. She has a Premium Plus subscription. And first of all, I guess, let's clarify, do you have to have a subscription to MyHeritage to see these theories? And then she's asking, how come I don't see them? What could be the deal here?
So theory of family relativity, you do need a subscription to see the theories. If you don't have a subscription, we'll indicate to you that we were able to find theories for you, but to see them, you'll be asked to get a subscription. The theory of family relativity, for those who don't know, again, in 10 seconds, 20 seconds, kind of like a recap, is a way that we developed about 2.5, maybe 3 years ago, which takes all of the data points on MyHeritage, which are the family trees and all of the historical records, more than 14 billion of those. And we kind of built, like using algorithms, we built a big tree which connects all the dots and trying to create the world big tree, let's call it for this sake. And then what we're trying to do is trying to see if you and the DNA match, we find a way to connect between you. So you can go through different trees and different records, censuses or newspapers and things like that, where we're able to identify the connection between people. And we show you a theory of how you might be related. And because of the scale of such a process, we're running it periodically. The good news is that we are running it right now. So if you didn't have theories before, just wait. Again, I believe that right after beginning of October, we'll probably release an update for that. And we have tons of new theories, and many, many, many new users are going to get a theory now based on the numbers that we currently see. One thing I will mention is that in order for this to be successful and for us to be able to find more theories, you need to have a family tree on MyHeritage. You need to make sure that you're associated to that family so that there's an individual for you there. And add as many people as you know, like build the best family tree that you can on MyHeritage so that there are better chances for us to hop between different individuals and try to connect the dots and find theories for you. If you're looking for the theory of family relativity, that can be found on the DNA matches page. Open the filter, and then the first section, which called tree details, the first option there is going to be show me only DNA matches with whom I have a theory of family relativity. So that's the way to filter your DNA matches and see quickly with whom we were able to find a theory for you.
Okay, great. And we've got a follow-up question here from Ernst. And he says that the theory of relativity hangs up on my maternal grandfather, matching him by 20% to someone completely different. He says it happens about 95% of the time. And will the interface be fixed for things like that? You mentioned an update. Will there be kind of fixes for current relativity theories as well?
So that's a very good point. And there's always, as I mentioned before, again, it's great because the questions are like I'm going back to the answers I gave before. So when we worked on the theory of family relativity, those rely on smart matches and record matches, right? So that we need to link between your tree and someone else's tree or record. And each one of these matches, they get a score. So sometimes the name is pronounced exactly the same and the date of birth matches precisely. And sometimes there's a day difference or someone wrote Ran, sometimes with an A, sometimes with an O. We still might think it's the same person. So the algorithm kind of gives it a score. And we need to decide on a threshold from which we won't take matches, smart and record matches with lower scores than that to rely on when building theories. So one of the things we're doing now is fine tuning that figure also, so that perhaps the 20%, he said that it's 20 in his case, so that's the lower part, and we might need to take it up. Obviously, the downside is that we might miss some real theories that, get a 20% or a 20-point score. But we're fine tuning that now and trying to make sure that it won't show up again. These smart
Great.
matches should have not been offered to begin with, to be honest. So yeah.
Well, I love this math and science principle, essentially, that you have to balance this giving people wrong information with missing right information, right? And so when you see something, for me, when I see something that's not right, I like to think, oh, well, this might not be right, but I'm glad they showed it to me because I want to make sure that we're not missing something that I could have had, right? And that's where, you and the computer are a friend, right? You have to interact with each other, right? The computer, the theory is saying, what do you think about this? And you have, Ernst, you correctly said, no, that's not right. And that's fine, right? And so, but by working together, theoretically, then we get a better result or output than if, than if we'd missed it altogether. So there has to be that balance. And it's so hard from a programming and a scientific standpoint to find that balance, right? And so that's what continued improvement means. And that's what, that's what the whole process is all about. And we definitely need patience, but we also need to just, hopefully make things a little better in the future too. So
exactly. I will say one thing though, that about 2 months ago, we added a new feature or a new component, a small one, maybe some of you have missed it. And we've added the option to tell us whether the theory that we presented to you is correct or not. So you have the option to confirm or to reject a theory. You can leave it as is and not touch it if you don't want, or if you're not sure. But we're already using the data given us from users. So one thing that is great in the case of the gentleman that you mentioned before is that if you reject a theory, we won't hide it for you, because sometimes people reject and then change their mind, or eventually they figure out that it is indeed the relationship. So it will just shrink. It will automatically shrink and you'll get like an indication that you rejected this theory. So that's easier. And also when you're going over your various theories, you can quickly see which ones you already approved, which one you rejected, ones you've rejected, and which are still pending for you to decide. And we're also using that data that we're getting from users on the rejected theories. So we have better way as I mentioned, we have hundreds of thousands of DNA users, right? Or millions of users, and hundreds of thousands of them, or more than a million, that have received the theory of family relativity. I don't know if the theory is correct or not, but the users usually do. So that really helps us to fine tune those algorithms and make sure that we set the right thresholds and provide the information which is most useful for users, and perhaps maybe hide or adjust those figures to make sure that we're giving the right information, or the balance is more
Right.
accurate,
Yeah.
as you mentioned it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I love this. I love it's machine learning, right? So you're giving the machine some real feedback about what's going on, and they're like, okay, that didn't work, so let's adjust. So that's really awesome. That's really awesome. We have another question here from Barry. So Barry's talking about 4 brothers were born over a space of a decade in late 19th century Galatia. 2 clearly ended up in Toronto in the 1910s, and the other 2 nothing has known. We would dearly love to find such 4th cousin descendants, and maybe they also avoided war-torn Europe and got away. How can DNA help? And so I just want to point out, we're going to put in the chat, we are giving away a copy of Your DNA Guide, the ebook, which is my kind of step-by-step guide for you to use tools from MyHeritage, for example, to get into your DNA matches and really find the ancestor that you're looking for. So if you would like a chance to win a free copy of Your DNA Guide, the ebook, then just click on the link there and go sign up for our giveaway. And we'll probably keep this open for about 3 days. It's really just meant to be for you who are live or you who are catching us here just shortly after, and then we'll be announcing the winner. But what kind of tool, what would be your go-to tool at MyHeritage to help Barry with this question of finding these lost brothers?
So Barry, you're not alone. First of all, we have many users who are going through the same challenges as you do. And what I would do the most is, I think there are different tools that can help you with that. So perhaps the first thing, I think the auto clusters feature that we have on MyHeritage, obviously going over the list of DNA matches and looking if something rings a bell, you find a close relative, which is great. But also the auto cluster tool, which is something super cool that we worked on with EJ Blom of Genetic Affairs. That's a tool that automatically clusters DNA matches together who are shared or shared DNA matches with one another. So you can kind of cluster them out. We cluster them automatically for you, and you can see how different DNA matches are probably related through an ancestral line. That's one way. And the second thing which might be helpful for you is that we give, since I mentioned, when you test with MyHeritage or upload from another service, you'll see you have lots of DNA matches who live in different areas around the world. So in the case that Barry mentioned, perhaps trying to filter your DNA matches by the country of residence, where they live these days. So try to look at those countries where you suspect they might still be living in today, and filter. And you'll, for example, if you believe that they, I don't know, moved at some point of time to Italy, so you can filter and look at your DNA matches who live in Italy these days, and go over that list to play with that filter. And you can filter by any other country or US state. So that also might be helpful for you.
Great. Yeah. So I love the principle that you mentioned there about clustering. So Barry, the whole key to genetic genealogy is finding the right group of matches that have to do with your question. And so what the auto cluster tool does is try to group your matches together. But really the key there is to find a match at MyHeritage that you already know your relationship to that's related to this line that you're researching. So find any cousin that's also related to this line. So specifically these 2 brothers that you mentioned, if you can get descendants of those 2 brothers to both test, or as many descendants really of those 2 brothers to test, that's going to help you pinpoint the right cluster or the right group of matches within your match page. And that's who you focus on, and that's where your research goal is going to lie. So good luck, Barry. There's so much that DNA can learn, or that can teach you about that family. So it's really about you getting tested and testing people from your line, and then hoping that people from their lines have been tested as well. So let's see, we have maybe just one last question for you about your record databases. So on the genealogy side here, Elaine is asking, what advances is MyHeritage making with new record databases in Eastern Europe?
So unfortunately, that's not very much the area where I'm focusing on. I know that there are various activities going around, especially related to records. We're adding new collections all the time. We have few huge collections in the pipeline, which I'm familiar with. I won't share all of them yet. Also, I don't want to steal the thunder from my colleagues, so they'll get the chance to do another Facebook Live. I know that some of them are also in the Eastern Europe area. So we're adding them. It's a bit more complicated doing it there, but it's something that we work on. So stay tuned.
Okay, and we have one last question actually. So will you talk to us about the distinction between the smart matches and the theory of family relativity, and how those technologies are the same, or how they work together, or how they're different, or why they're sometimes right and sometimes wrong?
Absolutely. So on MyHeritage, there are two types of, I'm putting DNA aside, right? Let's talk what some people call traditional genealogy. So there are two types of matching systems. One of them is called smart matching. Smart matching is when we're looking at your family tree and we're looking at other family trees built on MyHeritage, and we're trying to find individuals, the same individual in both trees. So for example, I created a tree and I've added my grandfather, Fritz, and then a distant aunt of mine living in a different country also built a different tree. There's also a person by the name of Fritz with pretty much the same dates. And we decide that this is the same individual, and we offer you, there's a smart match. We found this person on another tree, in another tree on MyHeritage. So these are the smart matches. The record matches is when we look at an individual in your family tree and we try to match it to an historical record out of the more than 14 billions of those that we have on MyHeritage. A census record, a newspaper, classroom, a yearbook, and things like that. And we're trying to tell you, we found the record, here is a mentioning of that person in that record, immigrant card, things like that. The theory of family relativity is taking, so smart matches are one-to-one and record matches are one-to-one when we're looking at them, separately. But if you'll think of that, there are long presentations in which I give all the background of how we build theory of family relativity. Perhaps we should do a different session, a separate session on that. But what we did is that we tried to build a huge family tree, which connects all the people around the world using those links. So if I built a family tree with up to 5 people, let's say, ending up with my grandparent, and there's another tree with 100 people and my grandparent is also there, now we can link, and I have people that are unique to my tree, and there are people that are unique to that tree. We can merge them, not physically, right? The users won't be affected, but behind the scenes, we can now build one tree, which is combining the unique information provided from 2 trees and from records, where we have census records, for example, where we have family relationships within families, right? Then we can build one big tree. And the theory of family relativity is when we take a DNA match and a person and a DNA match of his and vice versa. And we're trying to paint a theory of how these people are related by jumping through different trees and records on MyHeritage. So sometimes we'll need just one tree to go through, sometimes 2, sometimes we have paths that go through 7 and 8 different sources, right? Through census record from the 30s and census record from the 40s and a family tree from Australia and a family tree from Israel. And we're just trying to find a path that will explain how this person is related to that person based on genealogy or the information that we have on MyHeritage from the millions of trees and billions of records that we have. So I hope that's kind of like...
That's great. No, that was fantastic. Thank you for clarifying all of that. And thank you for joining us. And thank all of you who joined us live or you who might be watching us later. Don't forget about the giveaway. If you'd like to win a copy of your D-Day Guide, the ebook, that will definitely help you kind of take all those step-by-steps that you need to get where you need to go and finding the right people in your DNA match list to answer your question. Any parting words for us, Ran, before we sign off?
So I want to thank you again, Diane, for the opportunity. And it's great to see you as always. We haven't met physically in more than 2 years, unfortunately, but I know too long, and I hope that things will go back to normal as soon as possible, and we'll be able to meet again. And thank all of you who have listened. And again, from me and the team that I'm working with and everyone at MyHeritage, thank you for using our service. We hope it brings you joy and you are able to learn more about your past and therefore about your present as well. And just stay safe, and hope to see you all soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Ran. Take care.
Thanks, Diane.
Bye,
You too.
everybody. See ya.